Well, welcome everyone. I am super excited and super stoked to bring you this engagement session that we've got planned for you, highlighting the resource sector of British Columbia. My name is Tom Shapitka. I am the MLA from Kootenay East, the official opposition critic for energy mines and low carbon innovation for our beautiful province, and I will be your host tonight. So we've had a little bit of a structural rearrangement here. This is live TV after all, and things happen. There's a bit of a scheduling conflict, so we had a panel planned originally, but we're going to shuffle them to the back end of the program tonight, and we're going to bring Ellis Ross. That's all. That's the only reason why we're here in the first place, is to listen to Ellis, our next opposition or leader and the next premier of the province. And he's going to give us a little speech, and then we're going to do a little quick Q&A, and then we're going to wrap up with a few members of our panel. So with that, I want to bring on our next opposition leader, Mr. Ellis Ross, and the Premier of the British Columbia.
You're up.
Very well. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And my name is Ellis Ross. And if you heard me so far in the debates or my Facebook videos or in my commentary in newspapers, like the letter I wrote to Leonardo DiCaprio, you'll know I've always stood for people, communities. It's kind of a narrative that I actually developed over the last 17 years of my life. And I've never apologized for it. I've never backed down. And I'm not going to change it, especially now. Because in 2007, I first became an MLA. I actually joined the BC Liberal Party team to actually get LNG across the finish line. But there was so much more we could do. In terms of what BC was doing already. We were already doing well in forestry. We were doing well in mining. We were doing well in technology. And so I wanted to help with that, because really what that equated to was really good paying jobs. And that equated to good families, good communities. I know this from the ground up because I actually came from the opposite. I came from the Indian Act. And if you've ever lived under the thumb of government, you'll know how you don't want to do that anymore. You want independence. You want autonomy. You want the freedom to pursue your life. You want the freedom to actually raise your children so they can become independent. So in 2017, when I got asked to run for the BC Liberal leadership race, I declined. I've got to learn more about the BC legislature. The last 4 years, I'm so disappointed to tell you that I'm quite saddened by where BC has gone in the last 4 years, because all I can see now is pain and suffering for no good reason other than politics. No good reason. When you think about how well BC was doing in addressing environmental standards, why did we throw that away for the sake of politics? Why did we do that? To be honest, I really didn't expect the hardship that British Columbians are facing today. I didn't expect it. I knew that people talked about what the NDP did to the economy the last time they were in government, but I didn't think they'd come back and do even worse than what they did back in the day. Because think about this, the tourism industry, for example, a $2.9 billion industry. The NDP said it was a blip. It didn't matter. So all those jobs are gone. What we're talking about right now is 60,000 jobs in the private daycare system that the NDP are quietly getting rid of. It was actually our party that exposed that. You think about the hundreds of billions of dollars of LNG investment that is now gone. And now we're talking about British Columbia companies actually leaving British Columbia. Then we're talking about international investment. Doesn't want to come to BC. And then that's just a snapshot of what British Columbia is going through. But look at what they're doing to the forestry industry. They're actually getting rid of 18,000 jobs. And you don't understand how this is going to play out. 18,000 families just before Christmas are now thinking, what's our future? What's the future of our children? Which mills are going to shut down? And we've already seen a number of mills shut down in the last couple of months here because nobody wants to do business here. Can you imagine what these people are going through, especially just before Christmas? I'm so disappointed because we're not going to be able to turn this around until 2024. We're not going to be able to turn it around. And on top of this, To add insult to injury, the worst record of environmental disasters in BC, and this NDP government did nothing. They had a report on the heat dome a year before. They did nothing. They did nothing with the report. In fact, when they were told that 700 people died during the heat dome, our premier said, well, dying is a way of life. That's so callous. That's so insensitive. And even when our highways and our roads were being washed out, even when farmers had their farms flooded, they still pushed that emergency button and mobilized the private sector and mobilized the public sector. Farmers out in Mission Abbotsford are still not getting help. And it's just as simple as cleaning out their basements or getting rid of all this mud outside of the yards and putting it onto the road. There's even talk of charging citizens and farmers dumping fees to get rid of some of this garbage in their local communities. Going out to Monty Lake and finding out that what the government was saying about the citizens that stayed behind to fight fires, to find out what the government was saying was wrong. This can't be the BC that we live in. This can't be the government that we live under. But guess what? It's going to get worse. Because everything that we've seen right now, in terms of the BC legislature, what the BC NDP are doing, they've got 57 votes out of 87 seats in the legislature. They don't want to talk about anything, read about anything. Look at the freedom of information. They're going to push it through. They're actually taking advantage of a majority government. And they're not caring what average people are going through. They're not caring what the average worker is going through. And this is the difference that I'm proposing to bring to British Columbia. Because workers represent families. Families represent communities. And if we truly want to have a strong province with a strong society, then we've got to give our people the ability to make a living. So you're going to see a lot of distraction points being brought up, in this leadership campaign. You've already seen it a couple of times in this, with the debates in regards to the way I think. There'll be a lot of things that I say that's been taken out of context. But what I want you to remember, over 17 years, my decision-making has always revolved around the person. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your gender is. That's the way I've led for the last 17 years. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to compromise. This is one of the best places in the world to live. There should be no reason people should have to leave this province to get a job or to raise a family. In fact, for all those people that have already left BC and all those people that are looking to leave BC right now because there's no forestry jobs, no tourism jobs, I'll work to bring you back. I'll work to make sure that your kids are raised in BC with a good life. I'm sorry to talk about this just before the holidays, but this is how strong I feel about this. A strong economy means a strong province, strong people, strong societies. This is what I've always stood for. With or without the leadership campaign, I'm still going to go with this narrative because I truly believe in people. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for that interruption.
Well, strong words from a strong competitor, Ellis Ross. His heart's in the right place. And as you can see, this is live TV. This is unscripted, unrehearsed. Sound quality is not the greatest, but Ellis is crisscrossing the province as we speak. He's in the Lower Mainland right now. He's going to a Korean community engagement session here fairly shortly, and we're going to go back to a Q&A just shortly here. But I just want to let you know we are one day away from getting new members to support Ellis. This is critical. This is crucial. We need to get as many members signed up within the next 24 hours. So if you're listening, if you're not a member, if you need to renew as a member, if your neighbor's not a member, please, please, please go to ellisrosscampaign.ca, www.ellisrosscampaign.ca. Even if you Google Ellis Ross Campaign, it'll take you right there. Sign up one member. If we can double right now tonight from the people that are watching, and you get one person, go for 2, go for 3. Anything is a good number, but please sign up tonight. This is absolutely critical that Ellis gets in if we have any shot of getting in at 2024. Absolutely critical. Okay, we'll go back to the Q&A. I guess they're all set up and ready to go. Ellis, it's from the heart. Man, we love you for it, buddy.
Hey. You're good. Go. Hello, and thank you so much for joining our program. My name's Ben Lawton. I'm the campaign coordinator for the Ellis Ross Leadership Campaign. And again, we just want to thank all of our supporters and viewers tonight, and those yet to decide on their pick for candidate, or even to join the party. We just want to say thank you for considering us, for your time tonight. I'm obviously sitting here with a man with no need for an introduction at all. Ellis, thank you for this town hall tonight. I know it's been a busy schedule. This campaign has been really busy, and we're just thankful to be able to get just a few minutes with you here to take some questions from supporters from the audience. Ellis, I want to start with something that I think has been on the minds of a lot of BC families lately. These new forestry revisions has put a lot of families on edge at a time. We're supposed to be with their family and supposed to, be thankful for what we have and being optimistic about the new year. But a lot of families, unfortunately, are not feeling that. Tell us what is it about this NDP government that has them so hell-bent on forestry and the wonderful families who live in forestry?
Well, it's politics. That's all it is. I mean, they didn't even go out to consult families, communities, workers in terms of what they're going to do with the forestry industry. In fact, if anything else, what they did was they stacked a panel to achieve what they wanted. I mean, everybody knows the NDP doesn't like the private sector. They don't like the economy. They like big government. They like everybody to actually do as we say, not as we do. And so I read this question and say, okay, will you develop a committee to actually bring back the forestry industry? Yes. But it's got to be an impartial committee. It's got to be people that represent all types of interests in terms of the forest. That's what it's got to be. You can't actually just load up a committee to talk about forestry or tourism or LNG for that matter, just to achieve your political interests. When you set up a committee on behalf of the people of British Columbia, a legislative committee, then it's got to represent all of British Columbians. The majority of British Columbians. It's got to represent the future. It can't be just a narrow-minded political initiative to achieve what you want. That's not right. That is not democracy. And that is not the will of the people. So yes, to a committee, yes, we need an impartial committee to talk about all the interests of forestry workers across BC.
Yeah, I think we saw that approach as well. I mean, I've traveled the province with you. We've been in some pretty hairy zones. We were on the fire line in Kamloops during the forest fires. You have been to the flood zones down in the Sumas Valley there. And we see that time and time again. The NDP seem to want to play politics with these issues, and they're not getting to the facts of the matter. Talk about your experiences there. How was it that you came about realizing these facts on the ground, and what is it about your ability as a politician that really gets to the crux of the matter on a lot of these issues?
Well, it actually started way before I became an MLA. I actually traveled up to Fort Nelson when the optimism about LNG exports was still quite high. When I got to Fort Nelson, though, it was there I discovered that Fort Nelson was in an economic decline. There were people that were actually going in to hand in their keys to their house to the banks on Monday morning. And that was heartbreaking. In fact, when I did my tour of Fort Nelson, I went to a public meeting that night, and one of the questions were, can you help us? I'm a chief counselor from Kitimat Village, a small First Nations community on the west coast of British Columbia, but I'll do what I can to get the Chevron project going. If you'll notice, only one project in BC has gotten off the ground in terms of LNG Canada. Of the 18 other LNG projects, not a peep. Not even the $55 billion LNG project for Niska. Not the Cedar project coming out of Kitimat. Not the wood fiber project coming out of Squamish. Not one peep. And when I went down to Monty Lake, I went down to Logan Lake, I went out to Mission and Abbotsford to talk about the disasters that were affecting them. It was the same question. What can you do to help us? And it was quite sad for me to say, I can't help you. But what I can do is I can go on Facebook and I can tell the world what's happening here. I can tell the truth about what's happening here as opposed to what the government's doing. By the way, when you talk about the forestry file, for example, I really feel bad for forestry workers because you are up against a multi-million-dollar NDP communications initiative. It's hard to combat that. You're going to see you've seen all these glossy ads on TV. You've heard all these good ads on radio, but not once have they mentioned the worker. Not once. They're covering it up by saying, oh, we'll transition them to another job. Where are you going to transition them to? There's no tourism industry. The only LNG industry in BC right now is happening in Kitimat. Where are these workers going to go? So the communications plan, the multi-million-dollar communications plan the NDP have is in full swing, but nobody's talking about families of people or those workers losing their jobs. At the very least, I'm trying to use this campaign leadership as a voice for you.
So Ellis, Trevor from Fort St. John is asking about where does the NDP government, where does oil and gas kind of fit in? I know, speaking on what you just spoken to there, to Trevor's concern, you have had an established career of fighting back against false narratives about our cherished resource sector industries. And I think that one of, obviously, like the biggest accomplishment was LNG in Kitimat, getting that through and showing the world what kind of an incredible resource we have here in Canada. To Trevor's question, what is with this NDP's approach to our wonderful energy sector, and is this loss of investment going to be permanent, or do you think there's ways to get it back and really rebuild BC as an energy superpower within Confederation?
Well, this is the NDP's approach to actually chase out investment and actually destroy the economy. The LNG investment as well as the oil investment, it's not coming back. Not before 2024. And even when we elect a new government in 2024, it's going to take a lot of time to actually attract those investment dollars back to BC. You see what they did with TransCanada, Trans Mountain pipeline coming into BC. On one hand, they opposed it. They didn't want a new pipeline. And then not long after, they said, oh, we want Alberta's gas, so you got to send the oil through and the gas through to BC. They flip-flopped. They kept flip-flopping. And it was all based on politics. In fact, if anything, the Trans Mountain pipeline actually brought more to the table than what people thought. So you saw the NDP wanted to protect the marine environment. What they didn't tell you was the federal government actually had an ocean protections program that was meant for all the coastal communities along the coast of BC to actually be part of protecting the coast of British Columbia. You think about this. The NDP sided up with Washington State, opposing oil being exported out of Vancouver, but they didn't say anything about the crude oil coming from Alaska and actually docking right across from Victoria to unload their crude oil. And what I thought about was, okay, is somehow United States oil magical, where if it hits the water, it won't touch Canadian soil? That was politics. And if you look at what's happening across the board in terms of the economy in BC, it doesn't matter what private sector you're a part of. NDP are coming after you. They've already did it to tourism. They've done it to LNG. They've done it to private daycare. Now they're doing it to forestry. In terms of mining, only one mining project maybe will get off the ground outside Vanderhoof this year. Maybe. And so for all those people talking about electric cars, we need minerals for those batteries, cobalt and nickel. The United States have already said they do not want to do any more mining, and they're banking on Canada doing some mining. If you want these electric cars, we need to talk about where that actual mineral is going to come from.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think throughout this campaign, we have spoken to folks in mining communities, and there has not been a single expansion of a mine and not a single startup of a new mine, despite a pretty significant slight market boom in precious metals. So obviously we have a very anti-metallurgical government in power. And what do you think? If we have one question from Susan B. On this topic, if you were to get as the leader of the loyal opposition, should you win this election, what would be some of your main priorities as opposition leader to hold this NDP government to account and to make them face the realities of the consequences of their poor governance record? What would be your priorities as caucus leader?
That's going to be a tough question because
Right.
they're doing so many different things to the people of British Columbia. The taxes that you've seen raised and created over the last 4 years, they're actually proposing now to create and raise more taxes in the next 3 years to cover out the deficit as part of their survey. So where do we start? Do we start with, hey, how's it going with all those 18,000 forestry workers that you put out of work? How's it going with that? How did they transition? Where did they transition to? Wait, what about all those daycare providers, 60,000 private daycare providers? Where are they going? What happened to them? I mean, even in terms of what they're actually doing in terms of emergency preparedness and emergency remediation, where are they? I mean, there's so many things that the NDP have done to this province. Like, as opposite, we're going to have to think about really what is the idea of holding them accountable. The one thing I will tell you, though, the easy thing for me to hold government accountable is thinking about, okay, how did this affect the average family? If your mom or dad or your son and daughter had to leave BC under uncertain circumstances, maybe they had to sell a house, maybe they had to foreclose on a house, maybe they had to do something that actually disrupted their entire life, that's a great place to start. There should be no reason the British Columbia should be put through this.
And speaking on that, we're facing, Ellis, we're going to be facing a post-pandemic recovery. And part of that recovery inevitably will be led by the NDP until 2024. And then I believe if you're leader, we will form government again in 2024. And I think things will get better. But Eric Nival has a really good question. He points out that, the marginal income tax rate in BC is about 54% at the top end. Now, it used to be not lower, and Eric here, 43.7%. Given that we have budgetary restraints, but given that the British Columbian public is just strangled with taxes these days, what will you do to lessen the tax burden on British Columbians? Or what will you do to pressure the NDP to lower taxation across the board for British Columbians?
You know, not many people like to talk about this, but there's really two sources of revenues for the government. There's taxation, which you've seen already in terms of the inflation, the cost of living, in terms of what the NDP have done to raise taxes. But there's another source of revenues. It comes from the economy, a strong economy. So number one, what you got to do to actually recover, you got to stop the bleeding. You can't keep going back to the taxpayer, especially when you're ignoring the economy. You get a strong economy going. Let's say, for instance, the $40 billion LNG project. There's a lot of revenues that come off that. All the employment, all the real estate purchases that are happening up in Kidman Terrace, that actually flows back to the BC government in terms of revenues. I mean, there's these revenues for government so that government can spend it on their projects. But that's just only a piece of the puzzle that we've got to consider. There's going to be so much work that's going to have to be done to unravel what the NDP did. Right? But that's why I'm here. I've done it before. But it takes a lot of hard work, but it does take change. It takes a change in terms of the narrative. It takes a change in terms of politics. But ultimately, if we take it from the ground up in terms of people and communities, it can be done.
So Ellis, Steve from Whistler brings up a really good point. You know, BC, here in British Columbia, we're blessed with all sorts of natural resources. And I think that a lot of our economies, particularly some of our left-leaning political leaders, certainly take it for granted that we have access to an abundance of Steve's question is, what are we going? What would you do as leader of the opposition and as leader of the BC Liberal Party to ensure that British Columbians have access to affordable energy, and that some of these policies that are really tightening up our control over our supply don't push up energy prices and make life even more unaffordable for British Columbians? Will you prioritize energy and energy distribution among BC?
Oh, without a doubt. In fact, that's what I've been doing for 17 years.
Yeah.
But you know my background in LNG, but I've actually proposed that LNG be used for domestic purposes as well. I've said for a number of years, we've got to get those communities that are burning diesel right now and providing more emissions, we got to transition them to LNG until we can reach that clean energy future that everybody likes to talk about. So much more. The geothermal energy potential that we have. It's easier to get a permit to drill for natural gas than it is to get a permit for geothermal energy. And yet we have that opportunity. The potential is here all across BC. Why are we not tapping into that? I'll leave you with this one as well in terms of energy. The BC NDP stopped the standing offer program for clean energy. What was their alternative? They were going to buy electricity off the grid, the North American grid, which means they were going to buy electricity from the United States. The United States generates electricity from burning coal. That doesn't make any sense. When we have so much clean energy here in BC, and we have the potential to develop even more with our world-leading standards in terms of environmental standards, employment standards, why are we going the opposite way? The BC public exactly what this NDP government has been doing and how they've been doing it. This is why it's so crucial that people get involved with this campaign and actually understand what's really going to happen in 2024 and the choices we have to make as British Columbians. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, Ellis, we're kind of coming to the end of our program here, and I want to end off this session by giving you an opportunity to speak to all of the British Columbians, the members, even non-members as well. If you could say something to the families, the children of those families, the mothers and fathers who have been affected by this anti-job government, and its reign of destructive terror on the economy and these resource sector jobs. If you were to be able to speak to those parents and those families tonight in advance of the Christmas holidays, if you were to give them a message of hope and resilience, what would you say to them today? Them as leader of the the BC Liberal Party moving forward?
I know what you're going through. I know the uncertainty you're facing. I know the hardship you're experiencing. Mainly because I was there. I was born on reserve. Born and raised. Still live there today, by the way, with my wife, my children, my grandchildren. And through the 80s and the 90s, as a young man, trying to think about how to support a family, I never got the opportunity at a full-time job. I always went from a part-time job to welfare, to unemployment insurance, a part-time job. So I know what you're going through. Whether or not you make your mortgage payment, whether or not you're thinking about you're going to leave town and maybe you have to take your kids out of school and join a new school. I know that. I know that you want to give your kids the best Christmas possible, but you got to think long term. So you can't really dip into your savings. Been there, done that. So I totally understand what you're going through right now. And I said in the debate, and I was serious, I am you. I am grassroots. I've never forgotten where I came from. In terms of my leadership, my goal back in 2004, long before I became an MLA, okay, I'm going to work hard to make sure that nobody has to experience that in BC. I truly hope that you have a good Christmas this year. And you know what? I'm going to work hard to make sure we turn this around in 2024. I'm going to do what I can. If I win this leadership, leading up to 2024, I'll hold government accountable. Send me your stories of what you're going through. Send me what your children are thinking. I can understand the anxiety, the stress. I can understand all of that. Send it to me. The world has got to know what you and your family and communities are going through.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. A leader, a true economic visionary, a fighter and advocate for the Canadian worker, Ellis Ross. I know on behalf of myself, campaign coordinator, our campaign co-chairs, John Ressa and Suzanne Anton, our manager, Mark, and our entire team at the Change That Can Win leadership campaign. It is such a privilege and an honor to be part of your movement, Ellis. And remember, the deadline to sign up as a member to vote for Ellis Ross to become the next leader of the BC Liberal Party is Friday, December 17th, this Friday at 5 p.m. So please, if you're on the fence, if you want a better future, if you want to see this man take control of our main right of center political vessel in this province, by all means, sign up today. It's the best $10 you'll ever spend. And with that, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from the entire team here at the Ellis Ross Leadership Campaign.
Wow. Well, that's, totally uncut, totally raw, nothing scripted there. You're not going to get a polished politician out of Ellis Ross, but what you will get is genuine and sincere and just grassroots, like he said, person that really actually cares. And he's been there and he's done that. And there's a lot to unpack from that, Suzanne. He talked about forestry. He talked about 18,000 jobs fleeing. He talked about investment fleeing. He talked about the LNG sector. He talked about our self-sufficiency with our energy needs. He talked about our environmental concerns. But mostly what I got out of this, Suzanne, was that he talked about empathy. He really feels for people in British Columbia, and he really is earnest, and he's really caring about making better lives for people across the province. What did you take away from it, Suzanne?
Well, so I love his message about our natural resources in British Columbia and how much they're being neglected by this current government. And I think in a way it's sometimes a bit of an urban point of view. You forget where the prosperity in Vancouver comes from. The prosperity in Vancouver comes from these industries all around British Columbia, which are bringing resources into our province. That's what fuels, I'm a lawyer, it fuels the lawyers, it fuels the tech industry, it fuels the people that develop the mining industry, all those very clever people who make sure that we have good industry, but not just good industry. We have the most environmentally friendly industries in the world. So if you want to have a mine, there's no better place to have it than in British Columbia. You want to have a forest industry, there's no better place to have it in British Columbia. And now I don't know how much lies on this, but when they said that Whistler wants to cut off natural gas connections, so does the city of Vancouver. Imagine how many Site C dams are we going to build? Dan, you're way up there in Site C country. It's not that easy to build a dam and to get hydroelectric power. Hydroelectric power, of course, is clean, beautiful energy, but it's pretty darn hard to find a good source of it without going down into the States and getting it from coal-fired plants. So putting those pieces together for a general British Columbia audience, I think is fantastic. I'll just add one more quick thing, Tom. I really do like the way that Ellis brings it back to ordinary people. And as he has said, and we know, he's a guy that grew up in poverty. He knows what it's like not to have heat in your home except from the firewood that you haul up the hill. He knows what those things are like, and to be cold in your house in the morning. And he doesn't want to see people choosing between heating their houses and feeding their kids. And so to keep prices low for ordinary working families around British Columbia, it's just central to what he's thinking about. It matters here in Vancouver, matters on Vancouver Island. You two are, Tom and Dan, you're at the far corners of the province. It matters to your constituents. It matters to all of us. And I think it's just such an important message.
Yeah, Suzanne, you're bang on, and there's a bit of a disconnect for sure for those in the Lower Mainland. For some people, they don't realize some of where these resources come from. Our little panel tonight touches all the corners. Ella's, of course, from the northwest corner. Suzanne, you're in the southwest corner. I'm from the southeast corner. And Dan Davies, you're in cold country up in the northeast corner. What did you take away from Ellis, and what do you make of our resource sector and how important it is?
Well, thanks, Tom. And I'm going to follow up on Suzanne's point there right now about, Ellis's talk around carbon tax on home heating. I'm on the side of the highway right now in my personal studio here, my pickup, coming back from Fort Nelson. And Ellis started out talking tonight about the people in Fort Nelson and the impact the folks in Fort Nelson had on him. It was 35 below here most of the day today. It's actually warmed up now. It's only 25 below. This makes sense. The use of natural gas is not a nice thing to have. It's a necessity. We need this to heat our homes, and Ellis is very clear that these things, people should not be penalized and having to choose between. In fact, in my office today, I had a couple come in, an elderly couple, senior on a pension, $700 in carbon tax alone on their home heating bill. That's a significant cost, and some of these people are deciding between maybe a medication they need, food on the table, or whatever. And Ellis gets that, and he keeps coming back to this is about people. This is about people, and I think that is what really is important. And I'm in Fort Nelson, and we're talking about the importance of the resource sector. Well, I'll tell you, you can talk to anybody in Fort Nelson, and you can see in their eyes that there is pain because over the past number of years, some bad policies. The oil and gas sector is dried up. Certainly the natural gas, forestry is in trouble. These are people that are looking for hope, and a lot of people see that hope in Ellis Ross and Ellis Ross's plan. I talked to folks in Fort St. John. We talk about the LNG Canada and all the work that Ellis did on that. There's a lot of people working up here in the Northeast because LNG.
Oh, I think you cut out on us, Dan.
Oh, sorry, I got cut out. Hey, we're live here on the side of the highway.
Hey.
But like I say, the resource sector is extremely important to the people, the families that it provides a good job for. But it's also the economy, and it also provides that piece to the economy that supports all the things that we want: a good healthcare system, a good education system, the social supports that that people do require sometimes. And you know what? We've said this over and over again. There's no other jurisdiction in the world that does resource extraction better than we do here in British Columbia. It's better than getting it from other places around the world that has none of these great things in place. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I don't want to take too much away from you, but Ellis Ross, support ellisross.ca, get your membership, talk to others about getting their membership, and let's make him our next premier and give hope that we all need.
Well, bang on, Dan. You speak from the Great White North, the cold country that it is, and heating is more important anywhere. But like your place is like you need it, but we all need it. It's a luxury. It's a convenience that we have that we can't do without. Ellis talked, Dan, you talked about who does it better than anywhere in the world. Suzanne's talked about the same thing. I think we all know that we're global leaders, but we're being held back by this oppressive NDP government who fails to put permitting in place, that fails to put exploration permits in place. We haven't had a single nugget of any a new mine produced here since NDP took over in 2017. That's abysmal. What is wrong? We need to get these products to market. And LNG, there's a bit of a disconnect there. We've had LNG facility, a 50-year anniversary this year from Tilbury LNG, providing marine fuel. They just had their 50th birthday. They're looking for an expansion. We need to get that product exported and to market. And so far, this NDP has the demands have fallen on deaf ears, and Ellis understands it. He's done it once. He's going to do it again if he gets in as premier. So, Suzanne, to wrap, how important is it for members to get out and get their memberships?
So all the other guys are keen on taxes. Ellis is keen on finding revenues. He really is quite different from everyone else. He says, you guys want to spend it, but I want to figure out how to pay for it. And I love that thought. I just add a couple more things here. Having the Trans Mountain Pipeline down during those dreadful rainstorms and taking it out of commission, that does in fact remind people that we rely on that. And if that had gone on a little longer, I think it would have been a pretty blunt lesson for people in the Lower Mainland and on Vancouver Island, who sometimes tend to forget where their resources come from. So I think that having a person like Ellis, a candidate like Ellis, who gets that overall picture of the whole province is so important. So to get Ellis in, you got 2 more days to sign up. Go to supportellis.ca. And fill in your form, sign yourself, your spouse, your kids, your in-laws, get everyone in your family signed up, your neighbors, get them to sign up. You got to sign up for yourself. You got to pay for yourself. That's the deal in the BC Liberal Party. But there is no limit. You 14 years old and living resident in British Columbia, you can join the BC Liberals and you can vote for Ellis when the time comes early February. Great to have everyone here tonight. Tom, thanks for what you're doing, and a real pleasure to be part of this campaign. I tell you, I'm the co-chair, and I don't think I've ever liked a campaign as much as I've liked this one.
It's a lot of fun, Suzanne. I tell you, I jumped on board and I'm having a blast because we got a real candidate here. And you talked about how critical it is to get out to vote. We've literally got 24 hours. That's basically it. Before you go to bed tonight, ellisrosscampaign.ca, Google Ellis Ross Campaign. It'll all take you to the same place. Register. That's the only way we can do this. You have to register to vote. The deadline is tomorrow or on Friday at 5 p.m. There's no other way this can happen. This is a historical vote. This will change politics in British Columbia for generations to come. You want to be part of it. You want to be part of Ellis Ross's campaign team. It's critical. So people, please, please, please register to vote tonight before you go to bed. ellisrosscampaign.ca. Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Ellis.
Tom.
Wherever you are, he's somewhere crisscrossing the province. But thanks, and for that, good night, everybody.
And thanks to our audience. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas.